The most powerful color in the ancient world began as rotting sea snails. Not a plant, not a mineral, not a clean pigment ground from stone. A worker had to crack living shellfish, cut out a tiny gland, and feed that tissue into a controlled vat. Then heat, salt, air, and light had to do the rest. The purple was not sitting inside the animal. The animal carried the chemical starting point. The workshop forced the color into existence. First, the liquid could look pale, then yellow, then green, then blue. Only after air and light finished the reaction did it turn into dark imperial purple. That was Tyrian purple. Modern purple is cheap because modern chemistry made color stable. Ancient purple was expensive because biology fought back at every step. The value was not in the shade alone. The value was in the failed batches, dead animals, coastal waste, trained hands, and guarded process. Rome turned that color into rank. Byzantium turned it into controlled power. Then the protection system broke. The color survived. The biological factory did not. Today, purple means almost nothing. It sits on plastic packaging, sports uniforms, school bags, and cheap fabric. Modern dyes made the color predictable. They made it scalable. They made it clean enough for factories. That was the modern victory. But it also created the modern failure. We kept the color and deleted the process from memory. Ancient purple was not decoration. It was a material chain. It needed coastal collectors, shell breakers, gland cutters, vat workers, fire control, clean wool, salt, alkaline liquor, sunlight, and guarded trade. It also needed tolerance for waste. Purple workshops left mountains of broken shells. They produced a stink that could mark an entire shoreline. They consumed thousands of animals for tiny amounts of usable dye. Some estimates say roughly 12,000 shellfish could produce only about 1 gram of dye. That number changes the color. It stops being surface. It becomes extraction. But the gland did not produce purple. The color had to rot, reduce, oxidize, and change under light before it became power. That was the real mechanism. Not the shell, the sequence. The first step was collection. Workers gathered predatory sea snails from rocky Mediterranean waters. The dyers used several muricide species. Different animals shifted the chemistry. Some pushed the cloth toward blue, others pushed it toward red-purple. The shells came back to shore in baskets. Workers cracked them with stone mallets. Then they cut out the hypobranchial gland. That small organ carried unstable dye precursors. The final purple was not ready yet. It had to be built through reaction. Fresh gland fluid could look pale, yellowish, or green. That was the trap. A trained dyer knew the color had not been born yet. The gland material went into a vessel. Salt slowed uncontrolled decay. Alkaline material helped the vat chemistry work. Heat pushed the reaction without destroying it. Too little heat, and the vat stayed weak. Too much heat, and the dye body could fail. This was not random rot. It was a managed reduction vat. The goal was to make the dye enter the fiber before oxygen locked it. That is why timing mattered. If oxygen hit too early, the dye formed outside the wool. Then the vat made sludge, not cloth. If the fire ran too hot, the color weakened. If the vat cooled too far, the reaction slowed. Every step could waste thousands of animals. The wool had to be ready. Grease blocked the dye. Dirt weakened the bond. The fiber had to accept the chemistry while the vat was still active. Wool mattered because it is a protein fiber. Its surface could take the dye better than plain plant fiber. The cloth was dipped before the color looked finished. That is the part that made the process dangerous. The dyer had to trust an ugly intermediate stage. Then air hit it, light hit it. Oxygen changed the reduced dye back into an insoluble form inside the fiber. The color moved in stages. Pale fluid shifted toward green. Green moved toward blue. blue bent toward red-purple. This was not paint placed on the surface. It was a chemical lock set inside wool. That is why the dye could resist washing. The molecule formed after the fiber had already accepted it. The main royal compound was 6,6-dibromo-indigo. The bromine mattered. It separated shellfish purple from ordinary plant indigo. The sea had put halogen chemistry into a dye house. The dyer did not know the periodic table. He knew smell, foam, hand heat, and the dangerous color shift. That knowledge lived in workers, not formulas. Pliny described the process in hard physical terms. The gland was extracted, salt was added, the material steeped, the vat was heated, the liquor was skimmed. A cleaned fleece tested the batch. The wool, soaked, was worked, then went back again. It was an industrial procedure built from animals, fire, salt, and judgment. Now the politics make sense. Purple was not powerful because rulers liked rich color. It was powerful because the supply chain was brutal. A common dye could be copied. A managed shellfish vat needed coastlines, labor, species knowledge, fuel, trained dyers, and protection. That made it controllable. Rome narrowed access through rank, price, law, and imperial display. Byzantium pushed the association further. Purple became a political material. It marked authority, ceremony, and access to power. But the strength of the system was also its weakness. The process needed protection, capital, specialized workers, stable trade, and a court rich enough to pay for waste. A village could make a crude color. An empire could maintain imperial purple. That difference matters. Tyrian purple was not just a dye. It was a state-supported biological industry. The fatal break came before the final fall. In 1204, Constantinople was sacked. The Byzantine center of silk and purple production was disrupted. The court system that could protect genuine shellfish purple fractured. Without that court, the economics changed. Without that demand, the workshops weakened. Without those workshops, the workers scattered. The process did not need to be burned. It only needed to stop being practiced. That is how craft knowledge dies. Not in one fire, not in one lost book. It dies when the apprentice is gone. It dies when the vat is cold. It dies when the shoreline no longer collects shells. It dies when cheaper substitutes become good enough. By 1453, Constantinople itself fell. But the older production world had already been damaged. The imperial color had outlived the machine that made it. Later dyers had other reds, other purples, other status colors. Modern chemists eventually made synthetic dyes that were cheaper, cleaner, and repeatable. That solved the market problem. It did not preserve the old technology. Modern industry kept the shade. It amputated the biological factory. That is the hard truth. The thing people wanted was only the final surface. A ruler wanted the robe. A merchant wanted the price. A modern factory wanted the color match. But the lost knowledge was in the filthy middle. Shell crack, gland cut, salt thrown by hand. That held warm. Wool pulled out before it looked finished. Air doing the final work. Tyrian purple was not born in luxury. It was manufactured through waste, heat, salt, light, and controlled decay. The ancient world did not find purple. It forced purple into existence. And when the hands disappeared, the empire's color became only a color.